Hey, you're here sewing with Cody and Pete. In today's video, we are going to do the Bernina 570 brochure overview. We've already gone over the Bernina 535 in great detail. We've got many videos out there going over the brochure, going over all the features of the 535, and some hands-on overview videos working with the 535 in sewing and in embroidery. We're going to try and do all the same things with the 570, but we'll try and make it a little different. We'll go over some of the things that are different. So let's get started. So just like with previous brochure overview, we take the back of the Bernina 5 series overview and we break up videos into general information, sewing and quilting, standard sewing and quilting accessories, embroidery, and then standard accessories. A lot of these are similar to the Bernina 535. However, the Bernina 570 Quilters Edition and the Bernina 590 are quite different from the 535. They do have some more enhanced features that a lot of our customers really love. And we're definitely going to focus a little bit more on those, but we will go over everything on the brochure, just like we did with the 535, because if you didn't watch the 535 videos, we want you to see everything that the 570 and the 590 have. So even though I don't have the 590 here with me, I'm going to compare the Bernina 570 and the 590. Basically what we left out of the 535 video. So let's get started. So the first thing is the hook system. So like with the majority of our Bernina machines these days, we have the Bernina B9 hook. And what that does is it gives us our nice big beautiful jumbo bobbin in our Bernina B9 hook bobbin case. So it's very easy to maneuver and get in there. So one thing that is different, I know I'm skewing from the brochure, but the 570 and the 590 have a bobbin sensor. So it lets you know when you're running low and when you run out of bobbin thread, which the 535 did not. So just like the 535, the length of the free arm is 8.5 inches. It sews at 1,000 stitches per minute. You have a 4.3 color touchscreen. You've got 12 LED lights, so that's underneath the throat space and underneath around the needle and the foot. The 590 does have 16 LED lights, so the 590 has a few more lights than the 570. They all have the multifunctional knob, so this, in sewing, this by default changes your stitch width and changes your stitch length, but it does more than that. It changes buttonhole sizes and embroidery. It moves our designs around. It changes the size. It does a number of different things. That's why they're called multifunctional knobs. So the maximum stitch width, this is something that is drastically different with the Bernina 570 and the 590, is it's a 9mm stitch width machine. So we can really create some nice big wide decorative stitches. So if we compare the Bernina 9mm stitch plate with the Bernina 5.5mm stitch plate, you can drastically see that that opening here and here are drastically different. So with the Bernina 535, our decorative stitches can't be that big, but they can only be twice as big on the Bernina 570 and the 590. So that really allows you to move your needle position more over to the right, more over to the left, but also to create a much larger stitch. So the maximum stitch width is 6mm, and that's the same on the 535. Needle positions, you have 11 different needle positions. That's the one in the center, 5 to the right, 5 to the left. And you can change those right here, and you can change those with any of the stitches. So we have a zigzag, we can move that zigzag over to the left and over to the right. You can sew in every needle position. So that's basically being able to move any needle, any design in any needle position. Number of spool holders, you've got 2. You've got your horizontal spool holder here, and then here you've got a stainless steel vertical spool holder, just like on the 590, but the 535 did have a plastic one. You have a semi-automatic needle threader, just like on all of our Berninas. So you bring it down, you wrap your thread around it, put it through here, wrap it around, and it's threaded. I've got a video on that, just on that. So one thing, if you notice, when I use the needle threader, and this is something that only the 590 and the 570 have, the 5 series, and that is the presser foot moves up and down all by itself. So there's no lever in the back to raise or lower the presser foot. You can easily use your knee lift. You can use the button here, and it will raise and lower the foot, or you can press your foot pedal, and it will lower the foot. So that's something that's unique with the 590 and the 570. The other thing is the automatic pressure foot pressure. So the 535 had a manual adjustment on the side. Here our pressure foot pressure is automatic. So it's computerized, so we can come here, we can adjust it if we wanted to. But also we can go to our creative consultant and tell it what fabric we're working with and what technique, and it will adjust our pressure foot pressure for us. The other unique thing is the pivot/hover function. So that's if we're sewing and we stop with the needle in the down position, the foot will then come up and hover and allow us to pivot without using our knee lift, without raising our foot. It does it automatically. So if we take some stitches, whenever we stop, if we stop with the needle in the down position, the foot will then pop up and allow us to hover. And just like with all the 5 series machines, this one has the automatic thread cutter. So cut your top and bottom thread. And it has 4 manual thread cutters. One up here when you're finished winding your bobbin. You've got one on the side, you've got one underneath the throat, and then you have one in your bobbin case area. So something else that's unique with the 570 and the 590 opposed to the 535 is it has the built-in dual feed. So this is the first time out of all the 4 series and all the 5 series that we've gone over that has this built-in dual feed. So the built-in dual feed is kind of like a built-in walking foot, essentially. It's a light-duty walking foot is what we like to refer to it as. So it's the only thing that comes from the back. So in order to use the built-in dual feed, we need to make sure that we're using a D foot. So that's a foot with a number and the letter D after it. And that allows us to have that dual feed slide in this cutout that's on those dual feed feet. So here's our dual feed. What makes the Bernina dual feed different from other brands is so when we have the dual feed disengaged, so we just pull it down and let it slide up, it's nowhere in sight. It's not in the way of other feet, it's not in the way of a walking foot, it's not in the way of ruler feet or anything like that. It's completely tucked up into the machine and out of the way. Also, other brands have a similar dual feed system, but you can only use it with 1 or 2 feet. Bernina has over 11 different feet that you can use this dual feed function with. Everything from zipper feet to 1/4-inch feet to jeans feet, you name it, there's quite a few different dual feed feet. And we'll go over those feet in a different video. But to go back to the dual feed, the built-in dual feed is like a walking foot. So if you're not familiar with a walking foot or a dual feed, basically the built-in dual feed gives you feed dogs on the top to go along with your feed dogs on the bottom. So it's going to pull all those layers at the same time. So you're not left with more fabric on the top than on the bottom. So the Bernina adaptive thread tension, just like on the 535. So whenever you change a stitch, it adjusts your tension. Whenever this machine is stitching, it's going to adjust the tension depending on what needle position you're in. And that's something that's found on all the Bernina 5 series, and that's that adaptive thread tension. So it gives you beautiful stitches no matter what you're sewing on. This machine, just like the 535, can use the Bernina stitch regulator, the BSR. However, the Bernina 570 and the 590 come with that Bernina stitch regulator. And I've got videos on the Bernina stitch regulator. It has a start-stop button. So if I'm making buttonholes, I'll use this to power the machine, and it will start and stop the buttonhole all by itself. You can use this to start and stop your embroidery. You can use it to start and stop your Bernina stitch regulator. That's the start-stop button. Slide speed control. So here we can, just like on most of our Bernina machines, we can control the maximum speed. Upper thread indicator, just like all the 5 series, is going to detect if there's thread being fed through the top of the machine. But like I mentioned before, the 535 did not have, or does not have, a bobbin thread indicator, but the 570 and the 590 do. Has a USB port on the side to accept designs and embroidery and updates to the machine. That's with all the 5 series. It's got the Bernina foot control with the up-down function. We saw that in other videos, and that's where if we press the heel of the foot pedal, it will lower or raise the needle. It can also cut the thread. It can do other functions that you can change in the settings. It's got the needle up, needle down, and that's indicated right here. So that's where we can have the machine stop in the down position or stop in the up position. Whenever we stop. You can has a separate bobbin winder motor, so you can wind a bobbin and sew or embroider at the same time. It's nice when you're embroidering because you can be winding a bobbin when the machine's stitching. It has on-screen help, which is if you have questions. This could mean 2 different things. If you can hit the question mark button, and if you have questions about any of the buttons you see on the screen, it will give you a description. Also, if you go to the little house and you go to the manual, you basically have your on-screen manual, your on-screen help here. So troubleshooting, if you have questions about lubricating the machine or cleaning the machine, or embroidery or techniques or needles, they're all here built into the machine. And the setup program. And that's also found at the help in our settings. So when we come here, we can change the background color. We can change what happens when you use a specific function of the machine, or if you want to change how the hover works. You can do all that in the setup programs. And that's what the setup programs are. So that pretty much wraps up the general information on the Bernina 570 and the 590. They're very similar to the 535, but there are some of those main functions. The 9mm stitch width, the built-in dual feed, and the bobbin sensor are some of the big ones that set the 570 and the 590 apart from the 535. All right, well, stay tuned for the sewing and quilting portion of the Bernina 570 and 590. And remember, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more videos. Happy sewing!